So hello everyone and welcome to our brand new Sparx Global presentation. Sparx Global encompasses Sparx companies around the world that facilitate services, support, localization, training, mentoring, and more around Sparx Systems tooling. It's a really exciting time for us here at Sparx Systems with the recent release of the Enterprise Architect 15 trial edition and with updates to Sparx Systems Pro Cloud Server and Sparx Systems Prolaborate. My name's Scott Hebbard. I am the Communications Manager here at Sparx Systems, and today I'm very pleased that I get to introduce tools for enterprise architecture with Sparx Systems Prolaborate. I'm joined by Nizam Mohammed that will be presenting for us today. So the agenda, very quickly, I'm going to talk about how to submit questions. I'm then going to hand over to Nizam that's going to conduct a presentation on Sparx Systems Prolaborate, which I can't wait to see. And we'll finish up at the end with some Q&A, and I'll just recap what's coming up at Sparx Systems. Please note that audio is muted for all participants. You'll be able to type questions to your host, and if we can't answer all questions live, we'll follow up offline. You'll notice that there's a Go To Webinar questions box. You can simply enter the text into the text box and hit send or hit enter on the numeric keypad, and that question will come through to me. But right now, I'd like to hand over to Nizam that's going to talk about Sparx Systems Prolaborate. So I will hand over to you. Welcome, Nizam, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Scott. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. I appreciate your time. So I'm going to talk about how to use Enterprise Architect and Sparx Systems Prolaborate to be able to create some views targeted towards enterprise architecture in order to facilitate some better decision making and quick and easy access to the underlying information. So I need to split this into two folds. One is the content creation in EA, which is the basic tenet on which the entire visualization in Prolaborate would work. So, but the focus of this webinar is to go on the Prolaborate and show how the visualizations could be helpful for enterprise architecture. But I need to give a quick intro on what's there in the underlying enterprise architect model, which we are leveraging in the Prolaborate platform. So a quick overview of my model here in EA. What we have is a complete end-to-end architectural landscape captured in a structured manner in EA, starting all the way from business goals, which are connected to capabilities and the vision, as you could see in the traceability window. Further, the stakeholders and their interests, the business value chain, and how each of these values are associated to the underlying capability model or the reference model. How we have the customer journeys captured in EA and followed by all the applications that we have in EA as well. So if I get into my application inventory, I'll be able to see all my applications in the enterprise captured with all the business processes and services and capabilities, information layer and technology layer connected to it in EA using connectors. And it also has a rich set of tag values that qualifies those applications with all the required details. For example, the cost of maintenance, the go live date, the health indicator, and all life cycles, and all the other information that are required to make this application information in EA quite relevant and valuable. However, what we are going to do now is to switch to the Prolaborate platform, which consumes all the information that we have done in EA, which is the ideal platform for the architects and the modelers to create such information, to create the process flow diagrams, to create an integration view, or to create a logical flow diagram. EA is the platform to create all this information. But what Prolaborate aims to do is to get this in a more comprehensible way for a non-IT or a non-tech user to be able to visualize it and also understand it. So we have split my presentation into three broad use cases. So the first use case I'll be talking about how we can cater towards some completely high-level business kind of a users who are more interested to get 30,000 feet view of the organization, but if need be, they could also delve into one of the views that are created to understand it further. And the second use case I'll be talking about is how Prolaborate fosters collaboration. So the platform aims at fostering collaboration between not just a group of people, but the entire organization to be able to make this the contents in Enterprise Architect more relevant in every activity that they perform, including project planning or decision making or investment decisions, whatever should be driven out of the contents that we create in EA. And that's the second use case, how the collaboration thing works in Prolaborate. And the third use case we'll be focusing on is the even more extensive tools for decentralizing maintenance of models. For example, a typical scenario, we deploy enterprise architecture repository, and then the maintenance of it goes to the IT application managers and process managers. So we'll see in the third phase how Prolaborate could be used to have this decentralized maintenance to this central repository, so that your repository stays always current and updated. So with that said, I'm going to start with the first view, which is what we have created for, let's say, really senior management who would be interested to understand an organization's value chain or its goals, and how each of these are aligned to its underlying business capabilities. And for your information, each of these visualizations are automatically created in Prolaborate based on the underlying elements and connectors and tagged values that we have captured in EA. And to create anything like this, we are not intending to have any scripts or technical expertise from the architects. It's more about like creating the models in EA, and Prolaborate would take care of the visualization. So that's the bottom line I wanted to emphasize. And what we are seeing here is how there are two landscape diagrams that shows how the value chain of EA of the enterprises aligned with the capabilities, or the goals are aligned with the capabilities. However, if the user wants to dive deeper into one of these, for example, if I want to understand how the projects and portfolios are aligned with my enterprise goals, I can use this to drill down and understand what are the applications, for example, impacted by a project. And alongside, we have created another view where the user will be able to understand the OPEX involved in each of these projects and portfolios. If he wants to go further and understand the business impact of each of these projects, we have created a bubble chart which shows him what's the business impact against the cost of maintenance for each of these projects. And as he's looking at these portfolios or the programs running in an organization, he is also given a view of, hey, there are a couple of programs or projects that are pending your budget approvals. So in a single platform, he is able to go back and understand what's the actual impact of these projects that are pending his approval, and he'll be able to make an informed decision using this. However, if he is a little more tech savvy, he wants to understand how this impacts the rest of the architectural landscape. He is also given some dynamic visualizations which will let him understand how this program or project impacts applications or other services in the organization. So this is for someone who is a little more tech savvy and he wants to understand the actual impact or do a what if analysis. So now that he figures out maybe one of the projects is requiring his attention, we could also create him another dashboard For example, the ERP fast config is a project that I want my stakeholder to really look at in a little closer fashion. I've created a dedicated dashboard for him to show him that this is the current state of our organization, where the ERP configuration is a real showstopper. And in the proposed model, we want to introduce, for example, a new ERP configuration suite. And we are leveraging the power of EA to create a differential view between the current state and future state. And we are telling them these are the components that will be depreciated. These are the components that will be newly added. And this is how my proposed state looks like. So all these are given to him in a very intuitive manner, so that he don't have to find or navigate through multiple packages to find what he wants. And again, some of the more advanced visualizations in Prolaborate would also give him a closer idea of how these projects or these items that are of interest are connected to the rest of my architectural landscape, so that he could do a what-if analysis if need be. So as I said, we started from a very high level view in a dashboard, and if he or she is interested to dive into one of the projects and have a closer look, we can have another dashboard which gives them exactly the information that they will be interested in. So Prolaborate and EA are used to its best strength, not just to create these portals to show him what's impacted. I'm also demonstrating that if I want to give him a document for an immediate sign off from EA, as we know, we have some predefined templates that we could use to just select a project or a portfolio and say, give me a proposal document, and it picks up all the business goals and objectives around it and all the associated projects, its costs and everything, so that as a result of the analysis, he'll be able to give us approval if required. I'm now switching to a business head's view of the organization, where we have assumed that he'll be interested more to understand the capabilities of an organization, how all the goals and objectives are aligned against the capabilities. So in this dashboard, as you could see, it's again fetching the same information from the underlying repository, but gives them in a completely different way, where a user who is interested to more align his technical reference architecture or his architecture building blocks as per their goals, they'll be able to understand how a L1 capability or the L2 capabilities are stacking up, and what's the value of each of them. Or he could further dive down to understand the interrelationships between, for example, a value to the list of applications in their portfolio. So if they want to understand the high value or high critical applications, they'll be able to do a drill down using these views, which, as you know, or as you may understand, is using the connectors that we have created in the EA model to present these visualizations. So a user, for example, now is going from a business value to the capabilities and driving down further to understand the actual applications that are connected to each of these capabilities. Or alternatively, they could go from a business goal to an application impact as well. And for your information, once again, all these views are dynamically created using Prolaborate. So we used to do these diagrams manually, but what Prolaborate does is it taps into the information in the underlying EA repository and creates these views, so that it takes the pain, or it takes the overhead of creating and maintaining these diagrams manually. I'm now switching to the BPM view, a business process manager's view, where she or Gena will be interested more to understand the customer journey and then how it flows into the L0 or L1 business processes. Or she could also understand how each of these process steps are connected to the applications. So if she is keen to more dive into the list of applications connected to each of these processes, she could just get into a list view. And the list view is a quick and easy entry into the model where she could just click on it and understand the details of those applications. However, if she wants to dive more and understand the business processes, just by a single click from the thumbnail, she will be taken to the live EA process diagram with a very selected list of properties that will be of interest to her. And she would be also able to go back and even, for example, take a customer journey and walk down or drill down through the customer journey to understand the business processes as well. And as you could see, these are EA diagrams, and what the end user gets is a live view of the EA diagrams in a web browser, and they could do the drill down or or even click and look at its details from the web browser itself. And as you could see, these forms shown here are very simplified, curated forms which are tailored towards the end users. So that was a summary of how we could create various visualizations to cater to different users. We have just given a quick summary of various possible visualizations, but as consultants or architects, we'll be able to use a combination of these in an effective way to cater to our target audience. With that said, I'm going to move to the second use case where we are going to see the kind of tools offered in Prolaborate that will foster collaboration. And as we all know, collaboration is identified as one of the key element to have a better enterprise architecture practice, and also for all the initiatives that are happening in the organization. So instead of having emails or other conventional ways of having like communication, we want to consolidate all the collaboration in one place, have ways to notify users or have ways to invite users to get their feedback. So starting with that now, what we are looking at is a very simple platform offered by Prolaborate that gives a thumbnail view of the diagrams that my end user is expected to see. Instead of showing them all the 1,000 diagrams underneath, we show them exactly what is expected for them. And just by a single click, they get taken to the live underlying EA diagrams, as you could see here, and the diagrams are instantly updated. And it's not just looking at the diagrams, but they'll be also able to start a conversation. For example, if they have a feedback to be shared, they don't have to go to the emails. They could just start a conversation here, set a priority for it, tag the users who he or she would like to focus on this discussion. And the moment they do this, each of these users who are tagged or each of the other users who are subscribed to this diagram will get an email notification to their Outlook with discussion details and a link to access this model. They will also be notified in app and through notifications, which we'll see later on. But what we also see is it's not just at the diagram level. They could even take a task or an element in the diagram and dive into its traceability or its connected elements to have a discussion. So we'll see now the tools offered in Prolaborate to further this engagement. So to start with, as you would expect, there is an in-app notification of all the discussions or reviews or comments that are happening in their model. And just by clicking on one of those notifications, they get taken to the diagram where the discussion is happening. And they are also having a way to give or second a conversation that has already been initiated or start a new conversation themselves. And what you'll see here is they again, they get the entire collaboration where they could tag other elements or other diagrams in an EA model, and also tag other users who needs to focus on this and post a comment. And the moment a comment is posted, again the email notifications are sent and an in-app notification is sent to all the users as well. However, if a user is viewing a diagram and he kind of feels I need to engage a completely new user who is not already part of this team, all it takes is say invite collaborators and type an email to which you want to send an email invitation and just say invite. This would have instantly sent an email to the person whom you are trying to invite. Or alternatively, you could even copy a link to the diagram that you're seeing and send them an email yourself. So you could have different security levels for the links, so it's quite detailed. But it kind of makes things so easy that the person whom you have invited get an email in their inbox, and just by clicking on it, if he is identified as a new user, Prolaborate will allow them a very quick and instant registration step so that we would identify who is commenting on it. And with just this one simple step, he becomes part of the collaboration audience, and he or she will also be able to view the diagrams and also comment on it. Further to this, we could also have the discussion feeds shown in the tool in the dashboard itself, so that they never miss a conversation, and just by clicking on it, they'll be taken to the diagram as always, and they'll be able to comment or give a feedback as well. To put all this in a structured way, Prolaborate also has some workflows driven reviews, which kind of builds on the collaboration platform that we saw previously, but this is to have a formal workflow defined so that everyone who is tagged as a reviewer would get a proper invitation to give their feedback, has a time bound start date and end date. And what we used to do as in the conventional way of publishing a document, sending it out for review, getting feedback in Excel, is completely changed into more dynamic review, where we could set a start date, an end date, define a workflow, and then assign the kind of model artifacts that we want them to review. So I'm choosing a couple of diagrams in this case, which I want to be reviewed by my audience. And then I'm choosing the exact users whom I want to get their feedback. So this three simple steps has helped me set up a new review workflow. And the moment I do this, each and every reviewer who has been assigned to this would get a notification, a reminder, and an exclusive dashboard just to facilitate them to look at the review and complete their approval process. So the moment a reviewer logs in, he or she gets a reminder like this with saying, hey, there are 2 reviews, it's starting these days and it's expecting your input. And just by a single click, he or she gets taken to a reviewer's dashboard. It's exclusively designed for that particular review which he or she clicked, and it shows how many items are still pending her approval. And just on a single click, he or she will be able to see the details of that particular item which is being reviewed, all in the same place. So you don't have to hop between documents, you don't have to hop between models or emails. You're given everything in one platter so that you know the element, you know what it's connected to, you know the full breadth and depth of it. Whatever you have in EA repository, we are able to access it through the browser as well. And then if he is fine, he could just say I'm done, I'm fine with it by just clicking tick. Or if he or she has a comment, he just goes to the same collaboration platform that we saw previously to add a review comment. And that review comment also gets added to the reviewers dashboard and the moderators dashboard as well, so that everyone else who is reviewing this particular who is part of this review will also know what's been discussed. So it's not just simple properties of that particular item. As you could see, it also shows you the complete connected information as well. So you are actually given a part of the model that is of interest to you for review. So with that said, you could just go ahead and say, okay, I'm fine with all these artifacts. And once they do that, if they go back to the dashboard, you will see that the status is updated instantly, and they would know what items are still pending their review, and they would also know what other comments or other discussions are happening in this review. This is critical because one of the pain points in reviews is we get duplicate comments from every reviewer. So having a transparent platform also helps us get quality feedback as well. Now I'm switching to a moderator's view, where a moderator is the person who initiated this review or who is assigned as a moderator, and he or she gets to see what each and everyone else in this review process is doing and what are they up to. This is more for the moderator to have a very granular control, so he or she could also send a reminder or a notification manually to make sure we get the review comments on time. As you may all know, like one of the key challenges in having reviews is having a proper, a timely feedback. So Prolaborate has all the right tools to do that as well. So just summarizing all the comments, Prolaborate is built with collaboration in focus, with notifications, reminders, visual cues, and all the other tools that are required to ensure that the user is always informed and is quite easy for him to go and participate in a discussion. So a diagram shows a discussion is happening in a particular item, and just by clicking on one of those bubbles, you'll be taken to the exact diagram, exact comment against that particular item. What are the list of reviews that are happening, and just by clicking on one of those reviews, you'll be taken to its dashboard, and all the workflow that we saw previously happens. So with that, we kind of summarized the second use case that I spoke about, where Prolaborate fosters such collaboration to make sure all the intended stakeholders are involved in the ideation phase, in the feedback, and in the maintenance of the models as well. So the architecture practice, one aspect of it is to create contents, but the second aspect is to maintain it and keep it intact, and for that, collaboration is really critical. And just building on the same use case, the third part of the session, we're going to look at some more advanced tools in Prolaborate that could be used by people who are more into some further analysis or updates of this central repository. So we'll start with an application portfolio management dashboard, which is aimed at a slightly more technical audience, like an IT SOM or an application manager, or someone who is an application architect or a data architect who wants to know a detailed view of the underlying application inventory. And each of these dashboards would let the user click on one of those widgets and be taken to a list, which is like a selected filtered list of applications. For example, in this case, I've just got the client server based applications, and I get to see its details just by clicking on each one of those. So just going back to the application portfolio management dashboard, each of these dashboards are driven by the underlying tag values, and an update to the tag value would refresh this chart almost instantly. So you have applications by lifecycle, applications by health check, or applications by ownership, or you could even have a high level bubble chart to indicate the business impact versus the financial impact of each of these applications. And you will be able to understand what are the you'll be able to understand which applications to invest or which application to divest. So such kind of information based on the underlying data is possible in a dashboard. Or if I want to go to understand how each of my applications are stacking up against the technological obsolescence or technological relevance, so I could understand the applications by its status, for like, is it a strategic one, is it a tactical one, or is it something that I'm expecting to depreciate in a while. So again, re-emphasizing, each of these dashboards are completely automatic visualizations based on the underlying connectors and diagrams from the EA repository. So there are just further views on applications that you could create. Or what you could also do is you could have a view into the EAS diagrams as well. So for example, I've got an EA diagram I purposely put to show the interconnections all the way across. As you could see, that's the objective, to have a connected business application information and technology layer. But instead of showing them all the connectors in a more technical way, Prolaborate gives the end user a platform to leverage that data and create a what if analysis on their own. For example, this visualization here is generated from the same content that we saw in the EA diagram, but here the user has an ability to turn on or turn off items in this view, and they will be also able to set some visualizations to differentiate how things are connected. So getting to the next tool that we have a comprehensive matrix, which also helps us understand how things are connected to each other in the underlying model. So it's quite similar to it kind of uses the same configurations that we use for these enterprise architect relationship matrix, but what we see here is a view through the web browser with even more options to slice and dice information that we are seeing in the matrix view. So as you could see, I could filter out all the irrelevant or not connected artifacts from my view, and then just by hovering over one of these connection points, I'll be able to exactly understand what's connected to what and how they are, what's the kind of relationship that I've modeled. And I can further filter down by eliminating all the unconnected or the items that are not connected. Or a user can also go further and say, I want to filter it by a stereotype, or I want to filter it by a tag value, or I want to filter it by name. So I could even go and handpick each one of these items and say, these are the list of items I want to show in my matrix. And this matrix could be saved and be shared to the wider audience. So this is one of the objectives, to give them a very simple view where they could understand how, for example, and projects are stacked against applications. So if someone is not really keen on going into the diagrammatic view, they'll be also able to use the matrix view for it. So in this use case, what I was trying to quickly show is, like, we could have views which are tailored to a even more slightly technical audience who wants to do some due diligence or to want to have a play with each of these tools, and Prolaborate facilitates that as well. So with that, I kind of summarize the three use cases once again. So in this, what we saw was, we started with a use case to show highly curated views for the non-tech or the non-EA users who are more interested in a 30,000 feet or a holistic view of the organization, followed by the use case where we went into the collaboration tools offered by Prolaborate to ensure that the architecture practice is intact and relevant, and we have ideation phases and the feedback from all the right audience. And the third part were some advanced tools that could also be used by a more technical audience who are also a key part of maintaining the enterprise architecture landscape. So with that, I complete my presentation. I'll pass it back to Scott for more questions or summary.
Thank you very much, Nizam. That was fantastic. It was really great to get an overview and to see how powerful Sparx Systems Prolaborate is when used in conjunction with Enterprise Architect. So that's really great. I've got a question from Joseph, and Joseph says, is there a plugin to automatically have diagrams exported to other collaboration tools, for example, being Confluence? So I was wondering if you might be able to talk about how Prolaborate might be able to work with tools like Confluence or Jira. Thanks.
Absolutely, thank you. Thanks for the question. Absolutely, it's a spot-on question, and we focus. We really emphasize on having this information shared in other portals, especially Confluence. So we have a Confluence macro that is available for both, that's available from the Atlassian marketplace itself. And what you'll be able to do using that macro is to pick one of these diagrams, EA diagrams, and publish it in Confluence live. So the diagrams and the information of the in the diagram will be created in a Confluence page, and as and when EA models gets updated, the page gets updated as well. So we have a Prolaborate macro, which I will include more details about it in the Q&A section. So when we respond to this question, I'll give you the link to in which you could check out the macro. It's also available in YouTube. So if you even go to YouTube and see Prolaborate Confluence, you'll be exactly seeing the Prolaborate macro that I'm referring to. But
Thanks,
yeah, that's the
Nizam.
focus, not to have duplicate information. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, a fantastic point, that it's all stored in Enterprise Architect, and you can easily link to this this other information all using Spark Systems Prolaborate. So it's great to have so much power all at the user's fingertips. The next question is, what's the difference between the email notifications and the in-app notifications? So I was wondering if you might be able to talk about that and where you might use those two different use cases or scenarios.
Yep, sure. A good question. So the in-app notifications, I refer to the ones which we see when we are logged in the portal. So you will get a notification if you are in the portal. You get a notification popping up, or you will also have reminders in the top that will say, hey, there are things pending. Email notification is to their inbox. It's pretty much like any other social collaboration platform, like in LinkedIn or Facebook, where we get an email saying, hey, there's a comment. But if you're in the portal, you will get some in-app notifications as well, that someone has commented or have a new discussion going on. So we have implemented this, all the possible avenues where a person could be notified.
Excellent. And just a brief follow-up on that. So what do you see as one of the main benefits of being able to have a review process within Prolaborate? And can you perhaps give an example of where this might be used in a real-world situation?
Absolutely. So, you know, reviews are inevitable. For example, if you're doing some requirements or requirements in EA, for example, and you want to get approval from all the right stakeholders on the final set of requirements, the conventional way how it used to be done is we used to publish a PDF or a Word document, email it out to each of the reviewers who we need, who want to get approval from, and they will be replying to us via emails or through some Excel spreadsheet. And then the modeler goes back, makes the changes in the model, publishes a document once again, and sends it out. This is a really time consuming and slightly convoluted process. It's very hard to maintain or have a seamless feedback. Rather, if you use Prolaborate's workflow to define a review, what you are seeing is the same model information that you want to publish can be shown to them on a live basis, and their feedback is transparent. Everyone who is invited to review gets to see each other's feedback, and the model author also gets to see that. And if he makes changes in the underlying model, everyone gets to see that almost instantly. So there is no time delay, there is no bottlenecks. It's more real time, and it's very agile, if you say, to do a review using Prolaborate.
Fantastic, thanks, Nizam. So I might just wrap up ever so quickly. So if the content in today's presentation or any one of the video series piques your interest, please reach out to Spark Services in your region, and they'll be more than happy to help you. The website shown on screen, sparxsystems.com/partners Sparx services, will direct you to the various Sparx services organizations in your region. I just wanted to briefly mention YouTube. So last week we had another webinar on architecture in the digital age, and today's presentation will also be published on YouTube. There are hundreds of hours of video footage on Prolaborate, on Sparx Systems Enterprise Architect, on the Pro Cloud Server, and on requirements management, architecture, tools, and how to use Enterprise Architect. So please take a look at the Sparx Systems YouTube site. And of course, on the Sparx Systems website, we have an introduction to Enterprise Architect 15. So if you haven't learned or looked at Enterprise Architect 15, there's lots of content and information there about the new version, and you can download the trial of Enterprise Architect 15 and start using it. So for more information in the Q&A section that we've covered today will be on sparxsystems.com/webinars. Now that might take a little bit longer, but the YouTube video should be up fairly quickly. If you do a Google search for Sparx Systems and YouTube, it'll come up with the link for those videos. Sparxsystems.com/EA15 has a lot of background and information on Enterprise Architect 15. And as always, if you have any questions or you have any feedback, send it through to webinar@sparxsystems.com. So this is part of our Sparx Global Webinar Series. We also have an Enterprise Architect 15 webinar series that's been published and is available that introduces the new version of Enterprise Architect. So please feel free to take a look at that. If you'd like to speak to Nizam and find out more about Prolaborate, perhaps get a demo or get any costings, please just email prolaborate@sparxsystems.com and they'll be happy to reach out to you and help you out in any way that they can. So I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance today. It's been great to see so many wonderful questions and people so engaged to hear the content today, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thanks very much for choosing Sparx Systems and for listening today, and let us know if we can help you in your Sparx Systems journey. So that's it from me. Thanks, Nizam. Great effort, and I'll just let you sign off, and then we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, thank you once again, Scott, and thanks everyone for joining. For any further queries, please reach out to us at prolaborate@sparxsystems.com or visit prolaborate.sparxsystems.com, and we'll be more than happy to assist you with a demo or a proof of concept as and when required.
Thank you very much, and that's it from us. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.